Alright, cool. It's a rainy day in London. I'm in my little bedroom studio setup thing. Wanted to explain how I wrote this track, When the Lights Go Down. So this track's a bit of a synth poppy kind of lo-fi thing. It's got a bit of an 80s vibe to it. I wrote the initial idea for this in about 5 minutes. The tricky bit was just structuring it together and making it fit into an entire song. I actually wrote a blog post about this the other day, talking about forcing yourself to finish something, because writing music can sometimes take a long time to finish and you need to push yourself to get something done. So I actually forced myself to really sit down and finish this track and do it in one day, but it was a challenge. So let's start with those drums. Now this is literally an 808 sample pack from, I think it comes with Ableton. Very classic kind of sounds, and I just sequenced them together in Ableton. That runs through the whole track. My favourite part of this track is the synth. Clinging to another day. I actually wrote this synth part from scratch using Operator, which is a plugin synth that comes with Ableton. I'm not that good at programming my own synth patches, and I've only just started, but this is the first one that I felt really pleased with. Let me just play that for you. It's got a nice kind of funky fatness to it, if you know what I mean. And that just came from messing around with attack, release, a few other things. Basically just spending hours fiddling with the different controls and seeing what happens. You've also got this Fat 80s lead, which is, I think, analog plugin. Just adds a kind of lead texture to the top. And then we'll put the drums in. Alright, let's talk about the bass. This is also a Operator plugin. I patched this sound myself. Operator's got some really good versatile sounding possibilities. You can get a lot of natural sounds out of it. I think it's an FM synth, which means it modulates real world kind of sounds. And I think this kind of bass can work in a lot of different tracks. It feels very analog, if you know what I mean. Let me play it to you. So I've actually saved that preset as versatile bass because I think I'll use it a lot more, hopefully. Now what else have we got? Okay, let's talk about the chorus. So the chords mostly remain the same, although that main synth sort of becomes a little bit wider in the mix, and that's because I'm turning up the cutoff, so it sounds a little bit more urgent. I'll show you what I mean. So can you hear it just gets a little bit bigger, and I achieved that through automation. So you get a sense of movement during the track. In that chorus we also have a little bit more percussion going on. I just add this over the top of the 808. So this is a little drum rack that I put together. And then that goes over the top of the drums. And with the whole thing, it sounds something like this. Hold me when the sun comes up. Hold me when the lights go down. Hold me when the time goes up. Hold me when the sun goes down. Let's talk about the guitar a little bit. I'm actually really pleased with this guitar sound. It's created through sort of using a lot of delay, a lot of chorus, and I think it sounds quite nice. When I got to this stage of the track, I was thinking, what else does it need? Because it needed like a little extra flourish, and I think the guitar really suits it. It brings a sort of lo-fi indie kind of vibe to it, which I was really proud of. And you hear that with the whole thing. It's quite nice. Talking about little flourishes, one thing I really like to do these days is add little sound effects and blips, just to add some sort of punctuation in a way. So if you listen to my music, you'll hear a lot of this sort of thing going on. There's kind of, I don't know, that just creates a little bit more interest in the track and keeps it feeling kind of loose and kind of alive. Because I've used them quite a lot in my tracks, I think there's a certain consistency that's starting to appear, which is probably a good thing. Alright, let's talk about the vocals. Don't fall to pieces, I hear it. standard approach for this. I always seem to treat my vocals in a similar way nowadays. I like to double up the vocals where I can, so record 2 separate tracks, group them, and then add some effects. Alongside EQ and compression, of course, there's delay, reverb, a bit of chorus, and all these things together just make it sound a little bit more cohesive, a little bit fuller.
Don't fall to pieces, I hear it when the lights go down.
And then in the chorus, I add another 2 tracks on the top of that.
And hold me when the sun comes up.
It's actually really weird hearing that on its own. So really at this stage, you've got all these different parts, should have a structure. And then one of the hardest bits is really just making it sound right in the mix.
Telling me that you'll come round.
I think mixing is such an important skill, and it can really make or break a song. And I am by no means a professional producer. I consider myself still a bit of a beginner, but I really love getting my head stuck into the mixing process because you can do so many different things, especially with technology these days. So one thing that really made a difference to this track in the mixing stage was adding a third-party plugin called the Wolf compressor. This plugin's actually created by the main guy from the band Wolfpack. I think it's an emulation of an old digital compressor, which just gives you this kind of warm, fat sound and makes it sound a little bit more analog. I just whacked that on the master channel, so everything is being compressed by this thing. So yeah, this song was a challenge for me because I wanted to call something finished. The way I work is I'll often start an idea but not finish it and often forget about it. So in this situation, I actively forced myself to sit down and finish it. And amazingly, I managed to finish it in a day. And that just came from forcing myself to sit down and do it. Anyway, I'm putting all of these stems and samples into a sample pack, which you can download and use and remix and do whatever you want. Link should be in the description, along with where you can stream this track. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. I'll see you later.
And hold me when the sun comes